Welcome to Chamber Chat. I'm John Terr, President and CEO of the Boulder Chamber, and I welcome you to our bi-weekly conversation with our business community and our members about issues of importance to the business community and oftentimes to the community at large. And of course, in this week following the disastrous Marshall Fire, we are obviously talking about an issue that is not just business oriented, not just about our economy, but something that impacted our entire community. And I'm looking forward to a conversation with two individuals who touch on both elements of that. First of all, we will have Mike Chard, who is the Director of the Office of Emergency Management for Boulder County, a great leader in our emergency response activities. We also will have with us our Boulder Economic Council Director, Scott Sternberg, who personally experienced the fire from a vantage point of a Louisville resident, but also will speak to this as an economic impact issue for our community. So really an important dialogue about an issue that obviously impacted us all tremendously. But before we get started, I do have a few announcements from the Boulder Chamber. We have some events just kicking off this new year. And the first is a business before hours. It's on January 13, and it's one of our very popular speed networking virtual events. That's at 8:30 a.m. and it's a great opportunity to very quickly connect with other business leaders in our community to build business-to-business relationships and contacts that hopefully support your success. So that's on January 13 at 8:30 a.m. Make sure to register online, and I'm sure that it's a great way to kick off the year and build some new network of connections through the Boulder Chamber. And then on January 19th, we have an event that I know very many of us look forward to having, and that is the economic forecast. Traditionally, the opportunity for us to look ahead at the year, look at the indicators of where the economy is going this year and how you can then plan your business for success given those circumstances. And obviously, given that the Marshall Fire, the experience we've had with that, let alone the continuing COVID crisis, we're going to have a lot to digest. And I know that our speakers, including great leaders, Dr. Rich Wobbekind and Brian Lewandowski from the Leeds School of Business, and other guests will be helping us to navigate this economic crisis as well as this hit to our community and think about what it means for our businesses. So that's on January 19, that's at 4 p.m. We have both in-person and virtual opportunities for that. So I urge you to register quickly for, in particular, the in-person. That will sell out quickly. And then finally, we have a Boulder Young Professionals Happy Hour. And I know that for many of us, it's good just to reconnect after an experience like we just had with the Marshall Fire, get together, build connections, and just have a little bit of a time to decompress. And that's on January 26th. It's going to be at Frank's Chop House, a wonderful restaurant in our community, and that's at 4 p.m. again on January 26th, the BYP Happy Hour. Okay, so that's enough for the announcements for this couple of weeks, but I want to get right to our conversation. And so, Mike Chard, I welcome you to Chamber Chat. And I will just start by saying, Mike, I've had the opportunity to work with you in this community for a number of years. And I just am so always impressed just with the way you stand up in circumstances like this, the way you prepare our community to deal with crises. But certainly this was an unusual one. And so I'll just start as I welcome you to ask you, what did make this circumstance so unique and so devastating for our community?
Thanks, John. These disasters, when they occur, they're always because of extreme circumstances or a certain number of ingredients come together and then make the environment ripe for things to happen. And like in the floods we've had, and even most, Calwood fire recently, similar circumstance. This is very similar to that type of disaster where, we had, fuels available. We have drought around us, but Boulder has not been in a drought. So there's been growth of lighter fuels, things dried out, and then you put on that severe wind event that, has category 2 gust, hurricane gusts in it, sustained winds in the 50 to 60, 40, 60 range. So just a very fast moving fire that started. We also had another fire occurring right before this. So we started out about 10:35, 10:40 with a fire up around Left-Hand Canyon Drive that was pulling, forces that way and attention. And then this one started there at Marshall Road 93 at about 11:15. So the whole front range of Boulder County was experiencing fires. And during this fire, we also encountered 2 more fires just west of City Boulder that most people didn't hear about, during the later hours of this event. So there was a lot of things that were going around to start it, but the winds and the gusting, the light fuels available, just pushed the fire very fast. It's a very fast moving fire, kind of different from the timber fires we see with a lot of trees. This is what we call a grassland fire. And then it made it into our communities of Superior and Louisville. But a lot of times people forget we have many residents in unincorporated Boulder County that were first impacted. And we had subdivisions within that moving fire going from Marshall Road into Superior. There was many residences up there. We had 125 homes that were damaged in that range. So there was a lot of effort of needing to get people out of harm's way right away. There was fire suppression efforts going on. Our office, the EOC, where we get called in after things get rolling. We're a support mechanism, and we deal with the coordination, and where our job was to try to get resources reallocated from the fire up north in the county and bring them down into the south end of the county to be able to redistribute and reinforce the Mountain View Fire Department and Louisville Fire Department and our deputies while they were starting to engage in the firefight and evacuation. So the fire moved very quickly. I don't have a lot of information on the tactics side. I'm not out there in the field making those decisions, but we look at it from at 11 o'clock and I was watching the clock. We're getting the Weather Service reports, and we were not doing this for an hour. This was something that was going into the evening, just this nonstop howling wind with these gusts firing up and just pushing the fire at high intense flame rates and growth rates. And just watching the clock, like just get to dark so we can get the winds knocked down and maybe get some relief. And it's, and I can only imagine what people are going through. And we hear more and more stories of, heroic efforts by residents of Superior and Louisville that were taking heroic action to save themselves or their neighbors, and businesses that were, warning people and ushering them out to safety. So just a tremendous number of stories and around people taking care of each other. So we brought in mutual aid resources from across the Front Range from a firefighting capacity. We brought in SWAT teams that can rapidly deploy and get into the evacuation, duties from Boulder and Longmont and other police departments from around the county in the Front Range or the metro area. So a lot of our neighbors came to our aid within the first response community very quickly to help reinforce our efforts. Things start happening. There's a lot of, things that go on when these things hit. You get multiple communities hit at one time. We think about the fire front moving in. Our office was, all of a sudden we bring in a lot of emergency support functions into the EOC that link a lot of, and ESFs is what they're called, emergency support functions, and they link operational capabilities from all the different municipalities, private sector, and nonprofit groups to do things such as like help evacuate a vista in 6 long-term care facilities. So we were bringing in buses because the minute the firefighting is going on the front side, people are preparing on the other side of this. So we then were supporting the evacuation efforts that they did a fabulous job of long-term care facilities and the hospital, thinking about evacuating that kind of a vulnerable population group in the middle of the afternoon with this, horrendous smoke pouring in and, things just very chaotic. those are the things that the EOC helps support with those other sort of duties that are going on. Anyways, the fire continued. I want to belabor that much. Scott has experienced it firsthand, and I can't even imagine what it was like being on the ground. I was first responder for 27 years, so I have somewhat of an inkling, but I can't even imagine what it must have felt like being there. So very sympathetic to the emotions and feelings that people have around this fire and the experience they have, and then engaging in rebuilding their lives. But we did lose a number of homes, about 1,082 homes. We had 141 severely damaged, 11 destroyed commercial properties, 35 destroyed commercial properties, and those numbers may change a bit. This is a fluid situation with our damage assessment. And so a lot of impacts to the business community, to our residents, to our hospital systems, and then also to our infrastructure. Once the fire kind of was contained and then you put a snowstorm on the back end of this the next day to add and complicate it, but it helps control the fire. We had to then get people back in at shifts, right? Sheltering operations. We ended up opening 5 shelters, sheltering about 300 folks. We still have about 6 people in our shelter system today. And then the effort turns into, okay, the fire stopped. How do we get people back into their homes? Because now you've got a freezing circumstance with pipes and those sort of issues. So then became the challenge of getting electricity restored, getting gas restored to businesses and homes. And then we had a water infrastructure problem. So that's where the boil water order came out. We had to reestablish making a safe water supply. So Louisville's Public Works, along with help from City of Longmont and Boulder with their Public Works Department to help restore that. I think it highlights the ability of communities to help communities and the relationships established there, because you think in less than 7 days for all these residences, and it's not a gloating piece because there's so, it's devastation, but it was important for us to be able to get this done quickly. And it was done in partnership with XL and with Comcast to get fiber back in, and then the Public Works Department to get water going so that people can get home. And that was the first phase. So that is where we've had that completed. That mission is there. So the roads are open, people are back in their homes. The devastation is now being, obviously seen at a much, lower altitude, and it's right up front and personal for many folks. We did receive a disaster declaration from FEMA that does open up individual assistance and also some programs for debris removal. Those things are there. The Disaster Assistance Center is open there off of Public Road at the hub in Lafayette for the county. We have all the insurance agents over there. They're large trucks for people to access their insurance. And then there's 20 different agencies of services within the DAC for people to access. The DAC is the Disaster Assistance Center. So those are sorry for using acronyms there, but the mission now is to get people into knowing what they have for services to help them kind of get some traction in their lives. And that starts off with insurance to see what coverage you have and what resources they can provide, and then getting over that to Disaster Assistance Center to be able to find additional support. It also opens up the small, the SBA, Small Business Administration relief support. So there might be opportunities for businesses impacted to find some low interest loans and things of that nature to help them deal with unemployment or rebuilding their business. So there's a lot of things there for the community to access. The struggle part of this is going to be that we've done a lot of work in 7 days, and people are seeing a lot of things happening, but then things start to slow down now. There's going to be a different pace to this. And it's also happening when people are, dealing with the grief and loss of their home. So they're moving through the human aspect of this disaster, and then things may not be moving at the right pace for them. So this is the hard part, to try to keep those things, calibrated right, where people's expectations and the services and the way they get those services and the information and the answers they need, try to marry those up as much as possible so we're not causing more trauma or harm with people trying to get through the recovery process. And it is going to be slower. It's not going to move as quick as like getting all the lights on and the gas on. So that will be the challenges we have facing as a community there. And then, trying to, deal with some of the mental health issues around this. So people, they're vulnerable, trying to make sure that there's ways for them to receive, the health services they need to be able to stay grounded and balanced as they're moving through this recovery process. And then, of course, for us, as the responder side, is, as we know with every disaster that we've had in our county, is to stop, collect everyone that was involved, and pull apart how we performed, what we did, and look for the things that we need to learn from these disasters, where we have found gaps in how we need to improve, and then get an improvement plan put together, and then go to work on the hard work, not just on response, but also look at the mitigation efforts. How do we stop this from happening again? How do we minimize the impacts of these kind of events that could happen in the future, so that we don't have a repetitive disaster loss cycle? And those will be the things that our office will take the lead on with these reports and these assessments, and then preparedness efforts, and also work with our land use folks, and we'll work with Superior, our incorporated landowners, and then also Louisville, to try to find the ways that we can mitigate this or prevent it from happening again. So we'll stop there, John. It's a lot, and
Mike,
hopefully
that's
that
so
gave you what
much.
you needed.
I will tell you, I was mesmerized. I was thinking, okay, well, I'm going to ask him this question, and nope, he answered that question. So just to me, what it tells me, Mike, you are a seasoned professional handling a crisis situation, but you know the steps that a community needs to go through to address them, to manage the crisis while it's happening, and then address the fallout consequences. I'm going to just ask you one last question, Mike, and if you think about and reflect on what has happened over the course of the last week, maybe it's a message you tell yourself about this incident, but something that you would then also want to convey to the Boulder County community about this, and the sense of security that they should have and confidence in their emergency response officials.
Yeah, I think we've been tested many times with many disasters in this county, more than probably other counties in the Front Range, and I wish that wasn't the case. So there are, I'm sure, there will be criticisms of how things went down. There will be judgments about that. But there's also things that went very well, and you have to focus on is, any loss of life is horrific in my eyes. The goal is always no one dies. And when someone does, you take it personal, because that's what we're in the mission for. We do have strong leadership in our system, and that goes from elected officials to the police chiefs and fire chiefs across this county that I work with, all the way to the departments from across our county that actually, when I come in and ask them to participate in our multi-agency coordination system, which brings a lot of capacity to our EOC, and all that involvement and engagement and willingness to commit resources, time, effort, and support is what gives us strength in our disaster response system. And it's not because of me. I appreciate you saying those kind words of my leadership, but I'm a small cog, and it's really the capacity of all these partnerships and relationships with not just government, but like you, John, and Scott, the chamber, to our nonprofits, and all these wonderful people. They are the leaders. They are the strength of what gives us the ability to withstand these kind of disasters and not have something more horrific happen. And we've been tested, and we've withstood them. In the response side, we've recovered from horrific disasters, and we have, in just the last decade, you go back and do the recall from 4 Mile Fire. I was on that one. That was my first one here, to the flood, to our mass shooting, to Calwood fire, to this fire. There's a lot of big events there that, and I'm sure I missed a few, so I want to minimize those. But we keep the engagement, the relationships, the support. That is what gives us a great public safety disaster system, and will continue. And it's the willingness also to look and examine what we're doing and how we're doing it, and to make the improvements. That's what's got us where we are today. I think there's many counties that would wish they had the level of our abilities. That's not braggadocious in any way. It's just sort of, I think, looking at what we have and knowing what's around us. I'm very thankful for the level of commitment and the capacity we have, and it all becomes from the partnerships and the willingness for people to be involved and engaged in this enterprise that we call our Boulder Disaster Management System.
That's a beautiful message, Mike. And yeah, I'm not going to take anything away from you. You're a great leader for our community, and I so appreciate you coming on and sharing this information with our Chamber Chat viewers. So thank you so much for being with us today, Mike. Really appreciate it. So I'm going to turn it now to Scott Sternberg, who, as I mentioned, is the Executive Director of our Boulder Economic Council. He's also our Associate Vice President for Economic Vitality. But first and foremost, in this circumstance, he was or is a Louisville resident and was in the line of fire, so to speak, of the Marshall Fire. And I'm just going to start by asking you, Scott, maybe just tell us a little bit about your experience personally, and then what does that tell you about maybe what would be the some of the economic consequences of this incident?
Well, yeah, thanks, John, and my thanks so much for what you do. Just to start out, I want to have a shout out to the first responders. My personal experience, I was actually out for a recreational run when the first waft of smoke sort of came down into the Louisville Valley, and having that smell in December is generally odd to begin with. And so when I think for a lot of us, while we were here and as it started to sort of get dark, on what was a relatively blue sky day, there was an indication that something was obviously very, very wrong. As we all sort of retracted into our homes, onto our cell phone devices and televisions, realizing that the evacuation order was real, just as things were starting to come down into Superior, was just an indescribable moment. Folks here, I don't think ever thought that they would be, in a mandatory evacuation out of the cities of Louisville and Superior. But I will say, my experience was that, to Mike's point, very orderly. Very controlled, first responders on the other side of the road going as fast as they could, going into the areas where we were all sort of, trying to methodically get out of town, was really a testament to how our first responders really, go into the tragedy versus all of us who are trying to escape it. So, shout out to them. I would also say, in the days following, as we all had questions, I'm very fortunate to be able to be talking to you from my home here in Louisville. Very close call, but as we all were wondering whether or not our homes were standing, the information, the content that was provided by OEM was incredibly useful, and the alerts that were there, that was our go-to source of information. And that was just an incredible resource that we could rely on. And I think that speaks to what Mike said earlier, this continual improvement. What you want in situations like this, if you're in the middle of it, is accurate and authoritative information. Where to go, when to go, how quickly, these kinds of things. And then afterwards, what happened and what should we do, to protect our health and our safety and our own assets. And I would say those resources, in terms of the immediate information availability, was just incredible for all of us as we were going through the first 24 hours. I would say the next phase, in terms of the restoration of services, again, the cities, the counties have all stood up. Just my experience in the last few days, my gas was off for a while. Ironically, the gentleman who came in and ultimately turned on my gas and lit my pilot lights was from Louisville, Kentucky. And I sort of joked with him about how ironic it was that someone from Louisville, Kentucky is here in Louisville, Colorado, turning on services. But, I met folks from Nebraska, there was Adams County that was here. There was, Broomfield, you just see the cars and the trucks, the subcontractors, and talk to all of the folks that were seconded to come in at a moment's notice, sometimes overnight flights or drives to get here to restore these services. And it's just been an incredible experience to see how we all come together to do what Mike said, deal with the immediacy of the issue, but then also try to restore the community. And just lastly, what I think I will say is that, it really speaks to the communities of Superior and Louisville that they understood the situation and acted accordingly and responded the way they did. It's just just an incredible mobilization in a short period of time that got out of harm's way and was able to really to experience, at that point, a absolute zero loss of life in what was an uncontrolled situation. So I think it's a testament to everything that Mike and OEM has built over the years and continues to do. So thank you all for what you all do there. I just want to take this opportunity to say that. The aspects of the economic impact is really quite difficult to understand. I think we've all experienced our own economic behavior as a result of the pandemic. In particular, many of the folks, especially here in the Superior and Louisville communities, have been working remotely. And so over the past 18 months, people who normally would go into offices, whether that's in the Metro Denver area, in Boulder, or in surrounding communities, have literally been working out of their homes, their home offices. And now for over 1,200 residents or 1,200 locations, and maybe sometimes 2 times that number, folks now have had their offices taken away yet again. And it's an emotional issue, and it's certainly an economic issue, because now we're all faced with decisions as to how we're going to start to re-engage with our work in our workplace, our environment, our restaurants, our bars, and all of the services that we take. So the immediate impact really is of concern in terms of you take 1,000 or so locations out of the community and force that around, has an immediate economic impact on the community. I would say, longer term, we've added essentially, you could argue, a natural disaster put on top of a pandemic. And, we are trying to understand what the impact of the original wave of the pandemic and now the Omicron wave has had on our economy. And now adding on top of this a situation where it's really impacting people's personal decisions. I think, the businesses that were impacted, it will be a matter of time. They have the support, I believe, and they will continue to have the support to reestablish their business. And I just can't tell you the community outreach in terms of the businesses that were spared, that are stepping up to provide meals, clothing, other services, for the residents that have been displaced. So I'm very proud of the Louisville and Superior businesses and the supporting businesses in the community in terms of getting the immediate businesses back up online. But longer term, this is a situation where we're not separate economies. Louisville is not a separate economy. Superior is not a separate economy. We're interconnected to the broader community, and the long-term impacts need to be, let's say, studied and understood, because this is really an unusual situation when it comes to this interdependency that we all rely on for our goods, our services, our workplace, and recreation, where we like to live, work, and play. So it's unprecedented, uncharted waters. I said that almost 18 months ago when we started going down the path of the COVID crisis. And now, we've added yet another degree of uncertainty on top of everything else that has existed before. So it's a challenging situation for us, certainly.
Yeah, and I get your point about just trying to, what are those games where they have the multi-layered dimensions to them? I mean, this is a crisis on top of a circumstance that we were already trying to understand. And I imagine that you reflect sort of the thousands other folks who have to make decisions about their work, their future place of residence, their future relationship with their workplace. And this is all at a time that we are dealing already with workforce attraction and retention issues that we're handling. So let me just ask you this then, Scott. What type of response then can you describe that the Boulder Chamber, the BEC, has pursued and would plan to pursue going forward to address these impacts?
Yeah, that's a great point, John. There's lines of jurisdiction that exist across, municipalities, the county lines, the different agencies, and so on and so forth. And immediately as this was playing out, again, information is the currency in a crisis, right? And then the value of that and quality of information is paramount to act accordingly. And so, as part of the Northwest Chamber Alliance, Boulder Chamber and the other chambers here in Boulder County got together and put together a website that was essentially a clearinghouse for a lot of the information across multiple lines, things like emergency management, maps of closures, how to get access to food, water resources, space heaters, things like access and potential resources related to legal and financial services, trying to lay it out on one page as to where all of this information could be self-served in a very quick and efficient manner. And so I think that was a testament of how the community has come together and really put together, let's say, a website of websites so that folks could go to one location to really find out what is available to them and regardless of their situation. So that was one thing that I think is extremely valuable for folks and will continue to be valuable as time goes on. I would say longer term, the Economic Council and really the economic development groups within the city of Louisville, the town of Superior, the city of Boulder, Longmont, all of the surrounding municipalities. We now have an opportunity to come together as we did during COVID to collectively talk about, discuss, and perhaps study and analyze how interconnected our economy is and how it's been disrupted, both through the virus as well as all of the other natural events that we've had. And so this degree of interconnectivity is in our spirit, it's in our blood. We've demonstrated that throughout the COVID crisis. We've come together across agencies, across municipalities, counties, and disciplines to really work together to solve this problem. And so I'm convinced that, given the current situation, we will continue to do that and try to mobilize the resources and those folks that have had experience, for instance, in acquiring and managing federal funds during disasters and implementing those repairs and development that ultimately buoys our economy. So I'm confident that we have the individuals, the collaborations, and the resources and the working relationships that we've built throughout the last 18 months. I think that's a real asset going forward when we start to address what might be now a multiplied or amplified effect as a result of the Marshall Fire.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it is a collaborative region, and that is a real asset for us as we, as you say, analyze the impacts and then put in place the programs to support our businesses and lift back our economy. So, and I know you're going to be right in the center of it, my friend, as soon as you get back and situated in your own personal situation. But Scott, I really appreciate you coming online so soon after dealing with this circumstance personally, and I just I love having you on the Boulder Chamber BEC team, and I know that because of your efforts, we're going to get through this enormously well. We'll build back stronger, as they say. So I'll just conclude it there and say thank you both to Director Mike Chard for being with us to describe the circumstances and how the emergency responders have dealt with this situation. Just enormous thanks to him, to all of our first responders for putting themselves on the line in a heroic way to prevent this from being even more disastrous. And then I thank my colleague Scott for being on with us just to describe his own personal circumstance, but also then how this relates to our efforts to make sure that we maintain a vibrant economy here in Boulder. The last thing I'll say is that we have the website that Scott alluded to, and we have a partnership through the Northwest Chamber Alliance with all the community chambers in Boulder County. We work tightly together on a lot of policy issues, but then we have the opportunity to come together in league and support of each other. And so if you go to www.northwestchamberalliance.com/wildfire, you will see that website that Scott alluded to and has great resources for your businesses. So I'll just sign off right here and I'll just say, we'll see you next time on Chamber Chat.